Dunkin' Original Blend is one of the easiest coffees on your stomach right now. It doesn't hit sharp when you take the first sip. It doesn't turn heavy halfway through. And more importantly, it doesn't stay sitting in your stomach after you're done. You drink it, and your body doesn't push back. No tight feeling. No subtle discomfort building up later. No second guessing. The next cup, and that's where most people start noticing the difference. Because the problem usually isn't immediate. It's what shows up after. Now, here's what most people get wrong. They assume the solution is to go lighter. But Dunkin' isn't light. It sits right in the middle. And that's exactly why it works. Because when coffee stays in that balanced range, it avoids both extremes. It doesn't spike acidity on the front, and it doesn't build bitterness at the end. It just stays controlled. And control is what your body handles better over time. Most people aren't reacting to coffee itself. They're reacting to inconsistency and extremes. Dunkin' removes that almost completely. So the decision here is simple. If you want something that feels the same every day, doesn't surprise you, and doesn't create that delayed discomfort, this is one of the safest places to start. Now, this next one goes in a direction most people avoid, and still works. Peet's House Blend. This one has more body. You feel it immediately. Slightly heavier mouthfeel, a deeper presence in the cup, but without that aggressive edge that usually comes with it. It doesn't hit your chest. It doesn't leave that burnt sensation behind. It feels full but controlled. And that's a very different experience from what people expect. Because most people hear darker and immediately think too strong, too bitter, or harder on the stomach. But that's not always true. The real issue is not darkness. It's when darkness is pushed too far. That's when bitterness spikes. That's when your body reacts. Peet's doesn't cross that line. It stays just before it. So instead of creating discomfort, it actually removes sharpness. It smooths things out. And for people who feel like lighter coffees hit too fast or feel too acidic, this is usually where things start to change. Because it's not about going lighter. It's about removing instability. Peet's gives you more body without triggering that physical reaction most people are trying to avoid. So the decision here is also very simple. If lighter coffees feel too sharp or inconsistent for you, this is where you shift not to extreme dark, but to controlled depth. Now, this next one is probably already in your house. But the way people judge it is usually wrong. Starbucks Pike Place. Some days, it feels fine. Other days, it feels off. And most people assume the coffee is inconsistent. But that's not really what's happening. What's happening is that Pike Place sits in a very sensitive range. It's a medium roast that leans slightly darker. And that small detail changes everything. Because that slight push reduces acidity, which should make it easier on your system. But at the same time, if anything goes slightly off too much coffee, water too hot, extraction too long, it quickly shifts into bitter. That's why people feel like it's unpredictable. But when it's within the right range, it's actually one of the most controlled coffees you can get at scale. No sharp spikes. No aggressive front. No heavy finish sitting in your stomach. Just a contained, stable cup. And that's the key word again. Stable. Because your body reacts to variation much more than people realize. Not knowing what you're going to get in each cup, that's what creates that discomfort over time. Pike Place, when used correctly, removes that variable. So the decision here is different from the others. This is not a yes or no coffee. It's a use it right coffee. Because when you do, it behaves exactly like the others on this list. Predictable, controlled, easy to handle. And once you start seeing that pattern, something becomes very clear. It's not about finding a special coffee. It's about staying within a range your body doesn't fight against. And the next group of coffees takes that idea even further. In a way, most people completely overlook. Most people avoid this next one, and that's exactly why they miss it. Kirkland's Signature Organic Sumatra. This is a very different kind of experience. It doesn't hit up front. It doesn't spike. It doesn't build in a way that feels uncomfortable later. It just sits low. Low acidity, low irritation, low reaction. Overall, you drink it, and your body doesn't feel like it needs to adjust. And for a lot of people, that's the first time coffee actually feels neutral. Now, here's what throws people off. This is a darker coffee. And darker usually means heavier, stronger, harder to handle. But that only happens when it's pushed too far. This one isn't. It stays controlled the entire time. No burnt edge. No aggressive bitterness. No sudden weight building halfway through the cup. Just a deep profile that stays contained. And that's the difference most people don't understand. It's not about avoiding dark coffee. It's about avoiding unstable dark coffee. Kirkland gets this right. So the decision here is simple. If you've been avoiding darker coffees because they feel too heavy, this is where you test again with something that stays controlled. Now this next one goes in a completely different direction, and this is where a lot of people finally feel the shift. 365 by Whole Foods Organic Medium Roast. This one doesn't try to go deep, and it doesn't try to stay too light. It just holds a steady line. From the first sip to the last, nothing jumps out. No sharp acidity at the front. No heavy finish at the end. It feels clean. And more importantly, it doesn't build up in your system, because that's where most people feel the problem. Not in the first sip, but 20 minutes later. That subtle discomfort, that weight, sitting there. This one avoids that almost completely. Now here's the contrast most people miss. They think medium is just average. Nothing special. Nothing different. But in reality, this is exactly where control lives. Because when coffee doesn't push in either direction, your body doesn't have to react. And that's why this type of profile is so easy to repeat every day. No surprises. No adjustment needed. Just consistency. So the decision here becomes very clear. If you want something that doesn't force your system to adapt every morning, this is where you stay in that steady middle. Now, this next one is usually ignored for the wrong reason. Community Coffee Breakfast Blend. Most people see this as basic, too simple, too light, not strong enough. But the experience tells a different story. This one is soft from the start. No sharp entry. No acidic hit when you take the first sip. It just comes in smooth. And that matters more than people realize. Because for a lot of people, that first sip is where everything goes wrong. Empty stomach. First coffee of the day. And suddenly it feels too aggressive. This one doesn't do that. It stays calm. Mild body, smooth flow, easy to drink without that immediate reaction. And here's the part most people don't expect. Ibentugit es lighter. It doesn't feel weak. It just avoids the extremes that usually cause problems. No spikes. No overload. Just a clean, simple cup that your body handles without resistance. And that's the pattern showing up again. Control over intensity. Not stronger. Not bolder. Just easier. So the decision here is straightforward. If your issue starts right at the first sip, especially in the morning, this is one of the easiest adjustments you can make. And by now, the pattern should be impossible to ignore. Different coffees, different styles, but the same behavior. They stay within limits. They don't swing too far. They don't create that reaction your body keeps pushing back against. But there's still one piece missing. Because even when you get the coffee right, one mistake can undo everything you just fixed. And most people don't even realize they're doing it. Now, this next one is probably the safest choice on this entire list, but also one of the most underestimated. Trader Joe's Organic Joe Medium Roast. This is the kind of coffee you don't notice at first, and that's exactly the point. No sharp entry when you drink it. No heaviness building halfway through. No lingering weight sitting in your stomach later. It just goes through clean. Your body doesn't react. Because there's nothing extreme to react to. And for a lot of people, that's the missing piece. not stronger coffee, not lighter coffee, just something that doesn't push in any direction. Now, here's the contrast most people miss. They think if a coffee doesn't stand out, it's not good. But for daily drinking, that's actually what you want. Because the moment coffee starts trying to stand out too bold, too rich, too intense, that's when your body starts responding to it. This one avoids that completely. It stays right in the middle, from start to finish. And that's why it's one of the easiest coffees to repeat every single day without issues. So, the decision here is simple. If you just want a coffee that works without thinking, without adjusting, without guessing, this is one of the safest picks you can make. Now, the last one is different. Not because it's lighter or darker, but because of how controlled it is. Il Classico. This is one of the most stable coffees you'll find. From the first sip to the last, nothing changes. No sudden bitterness. No unexpected acidity. No variation from one cup to the next. And your body feels that. Because when coffee stays consistent, your system doesn't need to react or adapt. It just processes it normally. And that's where most people finally understand what's been happening. The discomfort wasn't coming from coffee itself. It was coming from variation, from cups that behave differently every time. Illy removes that almost completely. Everything about it is calibrated. Roast, blend, consistency, it all stays within a tight range. And that's why it feels different. Not stronger, not weaker, just stable. Now, here's the contrast. Most people chase flavor. They look for something bold, something unique, something that stands out. But that's usually what creates the problem in the first place. Because the more a coffee tries to stand out, the more it pushes into extremes. And extremes are what your body reacts to. Illy does the opposite. It removes the extremes. And that's why it works so well for people who just want consistency without discomfort. So, the decision here is very clear. If you're tired of guessing, this is where you stop. Now, here's the part that most people never connect. You can pick the right coffee and still feel the same problem. And it comes down to one simple mistake: how you're making it. Because even the most balanced coffee on this list can turn aggressive if you push it too far. Too much coffee in the filter. Water too hot, letting it extract longer than it should. All of that pulls out the exact compounds you're trying to avoid. Bitterness increases. That heavy feeling comes back. And suddenly, you think the coffee stopped working. But nothing changed in the bag. Something changed in the cup. This is why some people say, "This used to feel fine. Now, it doesn't." And they never realize what actually caused it. Once you fix that, everything becomes predictable again. You don't need to keep switching brands. You don't need to keep testing new options every week. You just stay within a range that works, and don't push it past that, because that's really what this entire video comes down to. Not finding the perfect coffee, but removing the patterns that keep creating the same problem. Too sharp, too heavy, too inconsistent, too aggressive. Once those are gone, coffee goes back to what it was supposed to be. Simple, easy, something you can drink without thinking about it. If there's a coffee you keep seeing and you're not sure about, leave it in the comments. I'll break it down for you based on how it actually behaves, not what the label says. And if this helped you finally understand why coffee has been feeling off lately, that's exactly the point. Simple coffee. No guessing.